Remember when we lived in a world of unique and fun-looking cover art? Well, not anymore. We live in a time where video game cover art is basically pretty bleak and boring from the main console distributors. Back in the day, the designs used to be unique with a little bit of pizzazz. Side art you could actually see in fun colors that screams, yes, this is a games console. But now everything's drab, lazy, and boring. Let me show you why. First, we'll be talking about Nintendo here because they're really the first major games publisher where they figured it out pretty well. Let's just say there's nothing bad about the Nintendo Switch cover art. It's just boring. Back in the day, they used to have fun, have a little bit of pizzazz to the cover art itself. A little bit of curviness, a little bit of originality. You don't see many people putting their game logo on the bottom, right? And look at this, a logo you could see from the spine from 2 feet or more away. Overall, the GameCube here had one of the more stronger cover arts from Nintendo. Really, in general, it looks distinct. The only thing you could really say is that it had the black casing, similar to other companies like PlayStation at the time. But a GameCube game looked like a GameCube game. And they kept being fun and unique on their next system. Even if the GameCube was a drastic failure, it was memorable in many ways, including the cover art. And heading to the Wii, they knew they needed to be distinct. They went to a white case color scheme, and it's iconic. The big Little Dipper effect of the Wii banner. The fact that it's almost perfect size for the art itself. And a lot of the time, you would have original logos or fonts from different games on the spine. Even though a lot of these were still white, it was a lot more legible than what we have now. Even the back had a little bit of originality to it. Even though these like red little boxes are supposed to be safety warnings and stuff like that, they had the unique charm with it, with edges, and just keeping with the theme of the Wii, which had that edge on the system, and having the controller symbols be here at the top and have their own little bit of personality to them. This was such a great design, and anytime you went into a store and saw these on a shelf, it felt substantial. Even with their handhelds, there was a bit of originality. Here alone, you have the game logo on the side. This is also where they actually started to be a little bit lazy, as the Game Boy has a similar thing to this. I feel like it's a little different with the DS. They changed to a white color scheme. The side of the DS cases here looks very similar to the original DS case design, and they leave enough room for some good cover art. This was really good. Also, not to mention, this was the first game case from Nintendo for portables. Like legitimate plastic case you could put on the shelf. This was innovative, at least for them. But eventually, they started to kind of play it a little safe. Here with the 3DS, they decided they were going to move the DS side to the right. It just put a colorful 3 here. It took the fun and originality of the DS and kind of just watered it down and moved the logo to the side, which is a little weird. Mind you, it's still good, and the white cases do make up for a little bit because it's distinct, and it's weird to have the logo on the side, but it really is kind of just dragging and pasting from the side and then removing the cool details of the DS cases. The one saving grace is this kind of logo, and the one saving grace of this is the logo and the icon for the game on its side. I thought this was a really cool thing, and I wish more companies did something like this, because it's almost like a PC icon, but on a game case. I really love it, and I thought this was actually a really cool design. Overall, this kind of just feels lazy a little bit. Then Nintendo decided they were going to copy and paste a lot of things with this one. First of all, on the top, they decided to steal the GameCube's like little banner and just replace it with the Wii U logo and change it a different color. For the most part, it's a little distinct, but in reality, man, it is a little lazy. It looks like you stole the design almost to a T and just recolored it. The side literally is just a Wii U version of the 3DS. And on the back, it just became generic console garbage for design language. Like, so many companies I've seen done something similar. And funny enough, it gets worse with this kind of stuff over time. The one little saving grace of these game cases is the unique, like, aqua blue. It does stand out, and I feel like just because of how little amount of games there are, it does, in the blue case, it does help it a little bit. To stand out compared to its brethren from the Nintendo lineup does help a little bit. That blue, it catches your eye. It makes you think that you're going to be on a game console that might last you more than a few years. In reality, there's not many games on it, so, you know, a little bit of false insecurity, but we still love the Wii U. Even if they kind of was starting to get lazy with their case design. But the Wii U scared Nintendo so much, they decided to upright and make everything bland. The Nintendo Switch, at the moment, the current Nintendo system. The one thing I can say is having the cover art be, mainly from the game itself, be all the way over the actual game case is cool. Not many companies do that. They're starting to now, but like, they kind of were the first to push this specifically. Not often will you get logos on the side too, especially if it's a Nintendo game. The only difference being this Nintendo Switch PNG logo that's always on the side and is so generic, they even use the same box when announcing games and don't bother taking it out. This is the branding. Mind you, this is where I think Nintendo started to get lazy because, first of all, anybody, including like a second grader that had access to Photoshop for a second, can probably put a logo and put it in a square and put it in the top and call it a video game cover art. If I didn't have the game case so close to the screen, you might experience what we in the industry call your Switch game cases blending in. Because from a distance, it starts to get even more and more difficult to see what the game is. Mind you, this case is sitting within a foot of my camera, and it does get a little bit harder. But when you're standing a foot, 2 foot away, this, even though the red looks nice, it legitimately gets difficult to see these game cases. They legitimately do. And it's kind of lazy, to be honest. Anybody can come up with this. And there's things that they could have added to this case that made it less bland, because the red, despite it being Nintendo red, it's kind of bland. It's a little bit lazy, and it feels like everybody's doing it. Like Xbox! As you see here, Xbox, good old Microsoft, decided to take what works with Nintendo, even if that's the bare minimum. They decided to steal that. The only real difference here, compared to like a Nintendo case, you have the logo on the side. I think Microsoft does include these on theirs as well, so most companies do still have their logo on there. And then up here, instead of a square, it's a weird hexagonal trapezoid hybrid with the Xbox logo. But for the most part, this is just the Switch front cover art. And that's kind of lazy. There's no originality to this. Back in the day, they had some really unique cover art. You had the Xbox orb that just looks over everything, as well as the traditional Xbox logo in the side, with this just really good green translucent Mountain Dew feeling game case. And these felt substantial for the time. And the sides, even though Nintendo also had like the black aesthetic for the GameCube, I think the Xbox also pulled around well because of this green aesthetic there. And then these green cases, they pop out at you, man. And then with the 360, they kept with the unique tradition. With the 360, they had this unique wave look that was so cool for the time. It gave it a unique flair compared to PlayStation. You have the 360 logo on the side that, with the banner going across like this, you had a little bit of green, you had a little bit of white. This was cool. This stood out from the crowd, and it kept the unique green casing. I think these are legitimately brighter too. And the sides are the same thing. You have the unique swoosh, you have the Xbox 360 logo. These were unique. Even the Xbox One had uniqueness to it, at least originally. Like, this case is so green that it legitimately looks like it's illuminating on my camera. This is kind of funny. But you had these full cover arts, kind of similar to what we have now, but they did it kind of a little bit more classier. mainly because you had nothing abstracting the actual art. They had the idea, compared to what Sony did the previous generation, of having this little tab, which on the PlayStation 3 was basically just a Blu-ray logo. But they decided to etch on or paint on the Xbox One logo. And this is classy. This was really good, which made me so mad they got rid of it. And I felt like back then, the sides with the gray, it was fine. Because a lot of the logos still were legible. They weren't bland, generic. They were still giving effort in 2013 to like 2018 on these. And it's so sad where they just decided to go to. Which led us to the lazy action, the lazy future that Xbox has been going into. Where I had described previously, this is just the Nintendo Switch but worse. Like, this is tacky. I don't like having this weird trapezoid on the games. I feel like if they did just a banner on the top, it just shrunk the art down a little bit, this would have looked nicer. Basically what they had previously, which I don't have on me at the moment, but they used to have this like banner going across at the end of the Xbox One, which in itself looked fine. It was just annoying that it was like the third or fourth cover art they launched that generation. In this, it just looks like a lazy attempt at the Nintendo Switch. Heck, even the sides are becoming not legible, as a lot of games, I've noticed, only have generic font on the side. And even the backs of these have gotten so bland. Because of the darkness of the gray they chose, it makes it look so much more bleak and like lifeless on the case. There's no excitement. Usually you only get this blurb, it seems like. The companies to really market the game on the cases, and it just makes it look so dark, bleak, and just miserable. Heck, you want to see the lazyception with Xbox, Nintendo, in the way that how lazy Xbox ripped off Nintendo? Well, Nintendo kind of ripped off their own design, because in Japan, they had a GameCube design that had basically a clear case with just cover art fully just throughout the front of the case like this, but instead of it being here, it was over here, which is a similar thing they did for collector's editions in America, which is basically, besides the black casing, is basically what this looked like, but bigger. You can tell this feels like a prototype Switch cover art situation, and then Xbox ripped that off and made an already kind of mid-design worse. It's like lazyception, which gets so ironic when you bring up PlayStation. I don't have the PS1 cases here because I don't own any yet. Here's a video and screen. As you can tell, they just look like Game Boy cases, turn black, and that's basically it. But given the history with PlayStation, Nintendo, famously Nintendo stabbed them in the back. So it somewhat makes sense why they decided to just straight up rip off Nintendo's cover art design. They were just kind of mad, but as time moved forward, it got a little bit more original for the most part. They moved basically the PlayStation logo that was here and moved it to the top, which, mind you, this I think is iconic. It is based on a lazy design, kind of made it their own somewhat. I like the colorful PlayStation icon on the top. I think that's really nice and a good little showcase. The logo's iconic, man. This logo is iconic. Even just the banner going across the top, I think that was enough, especially with that PlayStation iconic logo there for the PS2. The PS3 is a weird console when you talk about it. Originally, as I'll show here on screen, as you can tell, it was a unique design. It was a weird one, having the PlayStation Spider-Man font there on the side and then a red version of what seemed like the white logo. Kind of cool. I actually do like it, and I think that design does have its place, and I do like it. It just feels 2000s to me, but it was original. Nobody ever really did that version. And then they went to this. They were trying to rebrand PlayStation after a horrible launch, and they decided to go back to what was tried and true, and they actually made it really look nice. Even if they took away the colored PlayStation logo, basically simplified, but also made it very nice on the eyes. Good looking and sleek, and that's what was important, especially for their comeback of the 7th generation. You have the PlayStation 3 logo here, the new one, going across. Now, most games will have this little abomination gone, so I won't count it for that. For the most part, it was just that kind of strip design the PS2 had that Sony would keep on iterating. This looked like the next gen of PlayStation refined, and I think that's really unique. Even on the side, you had this colored, a lot of companies were doing this colored logo thing at this point for Xbox and PlayStation. And this looks nice on a shelf, having all these like different logos. Kinda is like what would be the equivalent of looking at a streaming service now, but just on your shelf. And just a small, good PS3 logo. This was nice, and it was the right step overall to a good cover art from PlayStation. And it's what these cases, I think, when I look at them, I think of a really good time. I think that does have a lot to do with just how good they look overall. And then they refined it even more, because I think this is the best iteration. The other one was a little darker. You had some whites. The gray, as much as I do like the PS3's cover art look, this pops out better. One, you have a blue case, which goes against Xbox's green. They kind of got that idea from them, and they owned it. The blue's PlayStation, it makes sense. The cover art strip on top, magnificent, man. And then you had a simplified PS4 logo there. This felt refined. It felt refined. It felt like they did years of hard work to make the perfect PlayStation look. I feel like this is more, you could argue this might be getting lazy because it is very similar, but I feel like this pops out more. It's like Sony cared, and then their heart shrank 7 sizes after the success of the PlayStation 4. This design is literally the PlayStation 4 design with a different colorway. Literally, you went from the iconic blue to just white. Like, you decided to pull off the Wii banner, but literally took the personality out of it. You gave us this bland logo. Like, what are we? 1940s cartoons? Why is this just black and white? The side is the same thing. It feels just like they copy and pasted and changed the colorway on everything. Like, even this bottom part seems the same, which you could argue, oh, PS4, huge success. We just should do minimal changes. But that's not fun, man. Even up to the case design, which every generation before, they at least iterated on the case. Like, they didn't even do that here. They were so cocky that they decided, no, we're literally just gonna take the saturation out and sell you this stripped down version of the PS4's look. This literally looks like a 4th grader went into Photoshop and turned the saturation down and said, here's the next gen cover art, and leaked it on Twitter. Like, come on, man. This is lazier than just stripping it down because you're scared of your previous system, or lazy because you see somebody else do it and it gives success to them, so you're like, okay, let's just steal from them, just straight up thievery. This is lazier than that. This is stealing your own design, doing nothing with it, calling it the next greatest thing since sliced bread. This is lazy. From the literal definition of the word, this literally requires almost no actions. This literally is copy and pasted. This is lazy. But will it get better? Most likely not. I don't want to say that, but in reality, most companies want to keep it safe and move forward without any financial risk. If that means they're going to copy Nintendo's look, they're going to copy Nintendo's look. And if that means Sony decides the PlayStation look is still working, they're going to still stick with it, even if nobody really, like, even if some of us really would like to see the creativity, which sadly is no longer there. It's a risk, and risks usually get ridden out for safe bets, because that's modern gaming for you. Only saving grace would be Nintendo here. They could do something wacky with the look of the next case. There's rumors at the time of this video, this is going to make it dated by the way, of a mouse function for the controller of the Joy-Con. And if they're willing to be wacky there, they could be wacky with like the menu system, which would be amazing. Nintendo being wacky is amazing. They could also give us cover art that has a little bit of personality to it and not this kind of laziness that we are currently in. So maybe at the end of this lazy, bleak tunnel, there is a chance somebody decides they're gonna walk up and say, no, we'll do something. Hopefully, please, Nintendo, I am on my knees begging, please. But that is the current bleak laziness of video game cover arts. And hopefully there is a chance Nintendo gets us something cool. This is another rumor thing, so you don't have to worry about this if this is years in the future and is wrong. There's rumors that the cases will be bigger. I'm excited for that. Honestly, there's something to me about the art of putting games on a shelf that legitimately makes these kind of a really cool little art piece almost. It shows your personality. It shows the personality of the people making these products. And it's something that's really, really cool at the end of the day that I wish more companies would jump in and do. Because it's a little saddening when this cool, iconic look from your childhood gets stripped away for a bland imitation. But hopefully Nintendo does something, because we know Sony and Xbox isn't. But I hope you enjoyed the video. And I am so sorry for how long it took to get another upload out. Hopefully this doesn't take another 6-7 months to make another video. If you enjoyed what you see, consider subscribing. Consider liking the video, because that helps the algorithm. And I'll see you all next time.